Hello and welcome to Principles for Ministry. This is principle number 10, which is entitled Self-Awareness is Key. So my name is Reverend Steve Chriscole and this is the Knights Templar Church. Right, so self-awareness. It says it's the key. Well, that's the title. Before I get into that, I just want to read you from 1 Corinthians 12, where the Apostle Paul, he says something about his own personal condition. Let's have a read of that. 2 Corinthians 12:7, it reads, "And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me." So that's what Paul has to say. He speaks about a thorn in his flesh, doesn't he? Which is some kind of physical ailment. We can assume anyway. It causes him great discomfort. We can't know exactly what that is. Some people try and speculate, so we'll not speculate. But whatever it was, eventually he came to terms with it. He'd sought the Lord 3 times, he said, but in the end he realized that the pain he suffered reminded him that he was a human being. He was a man, and men suffer. Women too, obviously. But more than that, it served as a reminder that although he was a servant of God, he wouldn't let his pride rise to affect his walk with God. Now that's a good lesson for all of us, isn't it? When we have physical infirmities, yes, we suffer from them. They cause us pain, but we cannot let them take us away from our walk with God. So what's this meaning? Well, we have to be aware of ourselves. So Paul was aware of his suffering, whatever that ailment was, but he was also aware enough that this is something that was causing him a problem, making him feel a certain way, and he realized, I have to come to terms with it. That is about self-awareness. We need to examine ourselves. We need to look at our attitudes and our behavior in a self-critical way. How do I come across to other people? Is my demeanor passive, or am I arrogant, authoritative? I could go on, you could talk about all sorts of ways that we can come across to people. And culture comes into it, and how people perceive you, depending on what they think, their own culture, whether it's, for example, I come from Great Britain, and there's all sorts of different cultures in Britain. Scots, Welsh, English, Irish, just to knock it down to 4, and they each have their own particular way of looking at things. And you break down England, for example, and I've lived in many places all over England, and you can see cultural differences throughout the entire country. So wherever you go, you're going to knock your head against the attitudes of others. Now, each of us has got many different areas in our personality, and they come to play in our ministry. But not just in ministry, of course, in our everyday lives as well. Well, no one's perfect in perhaps any area, I suppose, but we've each got to have the ability to look at ourselves and see, how do I reflect Christ to others? Do I reflect Christ to others? Yes, we each have our own personalities, and our own personalities will have a certain slant on how we come across to people. For example, I've spent a lot of time, a number of years in the military. A lot of my formative years, if you want to call it that, have been involved in military experience. So that has some effect on me. I've spent most of my adult life involved in martial arts training. So again, military, you get the idea. So there's a certain nuance to your personality, and there are other aspects as well. But anyway, that's me. What about you? Have you looked at yourself recently? Have you taken the time to realize that maybe you are causing somebody else a problem with your attitude? Or maybe someone else is causing you a problem, but you haven't really taken much notice. Doesn't matter which way it's going. If you're ignoring what's going on inside you and not realizing how you're responding to things, you can respond in inappropriate ways to other people. We're aiming to respond as Christ-like as we can. You will never know unless you look. Fair enough, isn't it? And it's like this. Let me put it this way: if you when you cross the road, you look left and right, don't you? I hope. Well, you should do. That's what we were taught when we were children. Yeah. And then you step out. Now, this is something we teach the children because, well, they are totally unaware of the danger. Until one day they get hit by a passing motorist, and if they survive, they've learned something if they live. There is a danger crossing the road. So we teach them. There's a danger across the road. But then they have to realize it for themselves. So they come to the curb and they go left, right. That's right for me, sorry. And they look to see if there's anything coming. Am I going to get smashed up with a bus or something? There's a danger, if you like, to the lack of inward introspection. And it is that the attitude, this attitude and behavior, that maybe it's not in keeping with a walk with Christ, that will most certainly be seen by other people. Now, as members of God's kingdom, I'll say we, but I'm directing this at the people watching this. You have a responsibility to work with the Holy Spirit in your own process of sanctification. That is the changing of yourself more and more. If you're not aware of what you're like, how on earth can you make the necessary changes? See, the Holy Spirit can prompt you, but he's not going to sort of start wiping your memory and putting new stuff in. You've got to respond. I still have changes to make in myself. But, my own life as a Christian, I've had to go through many changes. I've learned some very uncomfortable truths about myself over the years. It's taken me a great deal of effort, I will tell you, and struggle to overcome some of those traits that I wasn't fully aware of myself. And they held me back as a Christian also. And, if I look back and if God had not literally pushed me into circumstances where I couldn't avoid but look at myself and my bucket load of issues, well, where would I be today? I certainly wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. There's a good chance I might not even have been alive. Who knows? Because 30 years ago, I was literally heading for a heart attack. Now, you probably don't need to go through what I went through, but that doesn't mean to say that you don't have to look at yourself honestly. It's not an easy thing, I know. Hold yourself up against Christ and his teachings. You will never reach that standard because we're never going to be Christ, but we can try. How do you measure up? So here's the example to follow. If you're doing something different, then you've got to question yourself. If you're married, ask your wife or your husband, for example. They'll tell you. They might do. Get help from a minister or a close friend who know they will give you honest answers. Hopefully not negative criticism, but something constructive. Ask for feedback. And when you get it, act on it. If you can. So there's just a few suggestions. Okay? How you come across to those that you're in fellowship with and those you minister to, it's important. Now, you don't have to be a carbon copy of someone else, so we're not all trying to be Billy Graham. I'm not, as you can see. But you're an individual, aren't you, with your own personal talents and gifts and experiences. So we all have our own personalities that make us different. Well, we don't want to erase that. It's a good thing that we have those things. I'll give you an example from the Bible. The Apostle Peter. He had a different temperament even to his brother Andrew. But they each glorified God. Peter needed extra work on himself. He was a bit rough and ready at the beginning, certainly. And Jesus was his mirror. And Jesus pointed out some of his flaws, didn't he? If you read the Gospels. He went, and what did Peter do? He, over a period of time, changed through working closely with Christ and also the work of the Holy Spirit later on, and he went on to do some amazing things. He learned and he changed. So what I suggest is just take a little time, some regular time, to look at yourself. You're sitting watching something stupid on the television, well, turn it off and just sit quietly for a while. Listen also to the feedback that you must ask for. Don't just wait for it to appear. You've got to actually ask for it. And then, by gum, you'll get it. I say that because most people don't like to tell you to your face unless your behaviour is so offensive or so problematic that they've no choice but to say something. But by then, of course, relationships could be damaged. And it might be too late. So, this next thing I'm going to say, I've left it till last because, well, it's a subject that doesn't just need a one-off instruction about. When I say last, I mean the last of these principles. See, self-awareness is an action. It's our duty. We've got to work in collusion with the Holy Spirit in us. Some things we do are going to be extra hard to fix, and we might need some help. But you have got to be proactive. You cannot just expect someone else to fix your problems for you. And I hear this from pastors. They say, yes, I have people coming to see me. I try to offer them counselling, and it's like a never-ending saga. It just goes on and on. Well, that's partially because they're not fully trained psychotherapists, which is something that I was. And pastors try to help, but what's happening? They don't know that they don't really know how to affect the change that's necessary in the person, because the person is quite happy to come to the pastor and say, in their minds, they're expecting him to fix it. No, that's not how it works. We have to do the work. Self-awareness is key. See, most things, the things that we have, the problems, the issues that we have, we need to have them brought into sharper focus so that we can see more clearly what it is that we need to work on to make us more like Christ. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on that subject. I could go on for about an hour about that, but today's session is a little bit longer. No apologies for that. Glad you stuck with me to the end, so that's good. So it brings us to the end of this series of short videos on the principles of ministry. Each principle has its own area of coverage, obviously. You'll be able to see this series of videos again. You can watch them either on the church YouTube channel or directly from the Knights Templar Church .online website, where there's a special page that links back to YouTube, yeah? So I pray that you found them useful, both for your work as a minister or in your walk with God, or just generally in your life as a Christian. So thank you for joining me, and may the Lord bless you. God bless, and I won't see you next time. Bye-bye for now.